Welcome to Pigeon River Farm, doing farming right. I'm Robert Brown, the owner of Pigeon River Farm. Thank you for viewing. Well, good evening. Tonight we're going to talk about the role of kelp in sustainable agriculture. This discussion this evening is going to be basically understanding regenerative farming and how we get there. What are the building blocks? A lot of talk. I just did a political talk here saying that how I felt strongly about some of the changes because we've had none in decades. It's just been bigger farmers getting bigger, and corporate interests. The Bill Gates of the world just seem to be taking over agriculture. So we needed tools to fight back. So I brought that first point up. Now let's talk about some of the tools. The political component we'll have to work on. We all have to work on. But let's talk about some of the technical components, things that other farmers can roll up their sleeves and do. And kelp ends up being one of the keys to regenerative, long cycle, high quality soil. If we don't have high quality soil, we have nothing. We have nutrients that don't provide any value, or we have food that doesn't have any nutrients in it to provide value. So that the whole health cycle, everything else comes in. Looking at it from a livestock standpoint, I recognize very quickly over the years, in my early years, conventional farming, I saw quickly how that methodology was just ripe with endless vet calls, diseases, conditions of livestock. And then I look around my fellow man and I'm seeing the same thing. I'm seeing this chronic sickness is always there with us. So let's talk about the tools to fix things moving forward. Well, first thing I want to do is I want to talk about soil biologicals. So this is an overall a theme, a process, a procedure. I have been busy at this for 20 years in the soil that I have. So 2004 was the first year I really made the big switch over. And I'm seeing the ramifications of my actions in an incredibly positive way, and I wish we could get more people on board. But with big farm, big pharmaceutical, big everything, I don't know how this is going to happen, but we'll work on it. Okay, kelp is a renewable resource, nutrient-rich. Resources are available to putting it on the soil, and you end up having high-quality soil and high-quality livestock health. So just extract out livestock and convert it over to human health. They really are reciprocal because you got to get food from somewhere, and it doesn't, unless it comes from a magic plant that they're making synthetic meat in, and that's still going to use a plant-based product anyway. So let's think about how we get healthy food. Now the other one is we need to make this stuff affordable. Well, I don't see the marketplace coming along and making it affordable. What I see unfolding here is going to be a situation of let's see, I'm trying to think about best way to say it. If you support your farmer, the farming practices, by spending money with them, they can actually afford to do this. Otherwise, that spread, like I talked about last video, gets too wide, unsustainable. I have to use supplemental income to operate my farm. I try not to, but the reality is I need that supplemental income. It's key for farmers to develop a critical long-term soil regenerative and food strategy, an actual plan to go forward and plan this out. Now, introduction with kelp. How I apply the kelp is predominantly with kelp spray. I use a product by manufacturer of Zone. I've been using theirs for now going on 20 years. Excellent product. It's part of an overall system that I put together. But specifically to the kelp, it enhances soil carbon buildup through good microbiology, health. So basically I'm producing healthy soil. It really promotes plant growth. Now that's one thing that has been overutilized. You can go wrong with this. So you can use too much, you get too much bolting and the plants will grow too fast, but you won't get any of the nutrients that come along. So there's the way you process the soil, the way you get it onto the soil is key. Next thing is Kelp-Enriched Poultry Feed. I have been doing this for, again, an incredibly long time. And putting the kelp into the poultry feed in my custom mix, we've been doing that since, I believe it's about 2012. So it's been integrated in to that. Now, that is not from Zone. That is a commercially available product by the OMRI listed. That'd be the organic certified. That really makes a big difference in livestock health. Now, since our cattle are grass-fed, I don't utilize it in that environment. They get it indirectly through the spray that we're putting on the field and so on. So it's getting it that way. So that creates a natural life cycle. But in case of the poultry is quite different. It comes directly in through the feed. Then what happens is the manure from the birds gets placed onto the pasture during the winter time, and it's going to be there's summertime, and then in the winter time, what we have going there is the birds are out on pasture, and their droppings are again helping out. So we're getting a complete life cycle. Biological benefits of kelp. There is the ability to promote plant growth, and it gets in through the cell growth. And what then takes place is that the stresses are reduced, and the resilience of the plant. Oh, we got a helper tonight. One of the old farm cats here, Chancetta. She's been with us. I think she's getting on about 16 years old. That's why she's living inside now. She's called her thousands and thousands of mice, and time to do a little retirement here. Okay, we want to improve the soil fertility and structure. So the structure of the soil, the world that these microbial life live in, is key. And the kelp going in and putting it into the plant that makes the plant more fortified, and then now micronutrients get down into the cellular level and improve the soil fertility and the structure of the soil itself, because the plants grow better. Okay, timing is key to this. When I apply the sprays, the timing is absolutely imperative. A couple things that are key. One is, when there's nighttime and rain, in other words, raining out, you cannot apply this with any good return on investment when the condition is bright and sunny. So a beautiful, bright, sunny day, you will not see me out applying biologicals. The UV rays will damage and often cases destroy the biologicals. So not even really an option. Here again, the balancing of it, the timing at which I put it on, and I have to use the magic, the U.S. Weather Services and all these independent weather services are golden. Well, hopefully get better over time. But prediction of rain, how much rain we're going to get, how much cloud cover, all that is critical. I actually need to utilize that tool. That tool is very, very important to me. I need to think about these practices long term. So I'll apply kelp multiple times per year on the pasture, and I see relatively small, incremental, sometimes no changes at all. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the long game. I want to win over time, not just that immediate, what you'd see with chemical fertilizer. Putting chemical fertilizer and you get a bang for the buck. I mean, it really pops. So it appears to be working really good, but it also tapers off. It's a Roman candle kind of approach, where this has the sustainability. But that sustainability also, got to remember, has got to take a lot of faith. So there's a lot of belief in the book, so to speak. One of the things that we're dealing with here, there's a limited amount of high quality kelp available. Again, our government came to the rescue. So they have limited the amount of kelp that can be harvested for environmental reasons. And grant you, we gotta run a clean ship here, so we cannot have a haphazard. But again, having some lanes, like I said in my last video, that the producers of kelp. But what's happened now is American farmers are reduced on the amount of kelp we can get, but yet European and Asian farmers have much greater access to this, mainly because the governmental policies are different. And a lot of our policies here are very short-sighted, and they're not really understood. And just to believe it or not, we do harvest a lot of kelp out in the California coastal area. And there is too restrictive, the way I understand it, policies, as you'd expect often with California. Now we have a limit, but yet when it gets to the point where the Asian countries and the European countries can harvest all they want in their waters. So we have an economic disadvantage. So we're importing from farther away. And again, so they can do a finished product. You know, a European farmer can produce a product, send it to the United States at the demise of American farmers, the few of us that are trying to do farming right. So just be aware of that. Okay, the big benefit, now so the thing that we're is reduce synthetic fertilizer dependency. That is really one of the keys. When you go with this model over time, I'm now 20 years out and I have no longer, I haven't in 20 years, actually 20 plus years, but I look at my fellow farmers here and my soil, my dynamics seems to be above their overall average, because on the average my farm produces good quality every year. When we get into drought seasons, I am still robust. We get into heavy wet cycles, I'm still robust, where these are much more fragile lands. And I don't have that big nut to crack each year, but I still have to continue on. So when you get deep enough in it, you start getting sustainability. So that gives you a little bit of economic advantage. But how does a new farmer that recognizes this compete against farm subsidies? And that was the point of my last video too. How do we compete against these farm subsidies? They're picking winners and losers. And I am the first one for the free market control things. That is key. But when the free market has got somebody putting their finger on the scale, that's not a free market. So pardon me if I think that we need to have a little bit of change taking place out there, because I have observed this as a professional for decades upon decades. So I don't know if this new administration is going to be the solution, but the past ones were not. That was for a fact. So we'll see how that moves forward. Okay, what we found here on the farm is the increased lush pastures and thriving livestock. So my cost with vet and medicine and all that is just almost nil compared to others. And just and, a little anecdotal, but lush pastures, the pastures you grow, like I just mentioned, we can withstand more drought cycles here than they can in other adjoining properties. The other one we got to think about is the nutrient cycle. When do we need it? So again, strategizing on observation. And that's the stuff I wish we could be able to pass down. One thing I have noticed over the years, there isn't a lot of depth and knowledge within the agricultural education area. Because again, who's subsidized? Kind of like big pharmaceutical, big ag is funded. So where does all the research dollars fall? Often we have to look afar. What's going on in other countries and that are more prone to use organic or regenerative models. So we don't have the amount of data here that one wish we did. So that is going to be one of the bigger challenges that all of us have to deal with. But when you get enough years and you work with other like-type thinking farmers, and I have quite a few of them in my sphere, we all look at it together and we pass that information back and forth. And I go to events like the Grassroots Conference that I get just a wealth of knowledge from other farmers that are running similar operations that are believing the same thing, doing farming right. Okay, now let's talk about policy holders and try to encourage, even if you're not a farmer, even if you are so far removed from it, doesn't mean you can't send an email. You cannot make a phone call to your legislators and tell them to support. I just had a lengthy conversation with one of our U.S. Senators' aides in the state of Wisconsin here. And they were very receptive because, again, nobody's ever sat and talked to them about these details. This had to do with pasturing and regenerative farming and runoff and our competition, where the money's all going to these big CAFOs, confined livestock operations. And there was receptive ears, but apparently nobody had really brought these points up. So things to consider, every one of you, if you want to have a healthier environment, do one of two things. Either try to encourage the government to help us, or bare minimum, get out of it completely. I would be happy with either policy. If they would work, decouple from agriculture, would be as rewarding long term. I don't see short term, it'd be quite a calamity. Or they could stop picking winners and losers and at least disperse that money equally. I know this, I don't mean to rant here, but I also know this is even a town board member. The big cities get all the money. The little towns, you got to write grants. And it's so costly when you just got virtually volunteer people against big cities that have full-time, paid for by the government, taxpayer, staff. So you can't even compete. So I see so many of these areas where Washington has picked winners and losers. So let's get that whole thing. Let's think a little more libertarian here, where we can kind of let us take care of ourselves and not having Big Brother always be there for us. Okay, so we were talking about kelp, so I do have to stay on track here. Since kelp is a renewable resource, and it promotes sustainable agriculture, it is a farmable item. We can actually look at doing that too and get that whole system available. So we have these ingredients balanced. In upcoming videos, I'm going to talk about other ingredients that I use. But kelp is something that most of us understand, at least have heard of, had your toes, if you've swam into bodies of water, you've been tangled up in seaweed, so you got at least an idea of what I'm talking about here. And long term, it promotes food security and environmental health. So maybe there's a little negative coefficient when they're harvesting the kelp. Now we're going to argue this, everything you do, everything a man does, have some environmental impact. But if you're having a positive impact on the other side of it, you've got to weight these two out. As all officials do, you have to weight out the difference between one event and another. And I kind of don't trust DC of their ability to weight things out. I think they pick winners and losers, and where the most payola is seems like to be the most common. So what we need to do is help us as farmers go forward and be able to become more sustainable, so we can produce the food, the nutrient-rich food. I don't care if you want it in a bag of chips. You can actually have nutrient-rich chips and donuts. The thing is, the raw ingredients we're putting in now are horrible. So it doesn't really, it's a bad situation. So even if you're not into healthy food, but you just simply want to get the nutrients you need so your body doesn't deteriorate too fast, that should be a simple goal. So let's think about environmental and health dynamics. Well, I appreciate you listening through. Hope you gained a little knowledge, and this was kind of a rant/educational component. So please make sure you subscribe. If you have any comments, I'm always interested in hearing them. That's kind of the idea behind this. And you have the most wonderful evening.